go a little wider. Brings ball back for Marshall. The footwork. Benji Marshall. Now the speed. The footwork again. Away from Peachy. Passes without looking. Away for Richards. Back to Fitzhenry. That is as good as you will see.
Welcome back, Tragics, to another episode of the SUPERCOACH TRAGICS podcast. I'm your host, Dan, coach of Badonkadonk, and with me tonight I have three self-proclaimed experts. So to start with, we'll have Glen. Before we start, Glen, I've got a bit of some listeners are asking me about team names and whether if we can announce our team names so they can set up rivalries against us. So when I go around the grounds, guys, I'll ask if you guys can announce your team name as well, so we our listeners can set up rivalries there. So, Glen, how's it going, mate? What's your team name?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yeah, Tiger for life. I've had the same name since I started playing. So, yeah, set up the rivalry. Good luck with that. Hopefully you don't win.
Yeah, it might be a challenging one, I think, with I've beaten you once, mate. So, all right. Also tonight we have Brod. Welcome back, Brod. How was your week off, mate?
Yeah, no, it was good, mate. Just relaxing in old sunny Canberra, taking in the sun. No, so obviously my team's Brod's Broncos. You can add me, but you'll beat me every week. So I'd add the other boys to have a challenge.
Thanks, Rod. And last but not least, we have Timmy O back from SuperCoach 360, mate. How you going?
Very well, thanks, boys. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, good, mate. What's your team name, mate?
Yeah, boys, I'm Lightweights FC. I've used the same name for, 10 or 15 years of playing EPL fantasy and then, 2014 when I switched over to this as well. So, yeah, it's the Lightweights FC. I'm all of 65 kilos, ringing wet on a fat day after breakfast.
Awesome. Well, if you want to add us as rivals, guys, feel free to add us. If you didn't get me a name at the start, my name is Dan. I'm coach of Badonkadonk. I've named that after Missy Elliott, so that's how I got my team name, guys. But if you don't know how to set up rivalries at all, feel free to join our overall Tragics comp, which is the code there is 922904. You'll see us all in that group as well, and you also get a chance there to win a SuperCoach champion ring, and also entry into a $100 cash comp next year in 2023. So that's starting off with the shout outs there. I'll also shout out the supercoach360.com website and all the boys there putting together some really good articles and stuff. So feel free to jump on there. Juzzy, Bergs, and Con and the boys, including Timmy O, are actually doing a lot of work behind the scenes, including Glen as well. And one last shout out, our Podmasters. So Kano has been putting together a lot of leagues for everyone to join up. But there's one overall group here you can join, which is 104397. Jump into that one, guys. That one there, if you want to compete against all the podcasters, we're all in there. Might be a bit of a challenging one, but feel free to jump in there and join the rest. Cheers. All right, let's move on to the news. So our man in the field, Glen, has got some news for us, mate. What do you got?
I just wanted to say something else also on the rivalries. If you do set up a rivalry and you join our page on SuperCoach Tragics, and you beat us any round, come on and give them heaps, and me too. I don't care. We don't mind. Make us earn it. All right, so the news. So most of it's player related. So as we all know, Fogarty from the Raiders has gone down. He's out for 4 or 5 months. And so that brings Snyder into contention. So Ricky Stewart's come out today and said he's going to give Snyder a crack. And he's a bottom dollar halfback. So for those that know, that's an imperative for us that are trying to build revenue early. The second one, Smith Shields underwent surgery. Wade Graham in a moon boot, out for 6 to 8 weeks. So that's nothing unordinary. That's pretty common for Wade. Cooper Johns down 4 to 6 weeks. Luke Keary's good to go. So for those Roosters fans out there, Luke Keary's good to go. Jacob Little from the Tigers has gone down with a PCL. He's out 4 to 6 weeks. Trent Robinson has extended his contract with the Roosters to 2028, so that's great for anyone that knows he's one of the best coaches out there, and the Roosters will be happy about that. And Dylan Walker has signed possibly to go to the Warriors. I don't know if that's been confirmed, but 2022, looking at moving to the Warriors. So I actually think that's a good buy myself. And the last one I thought was funny, but I'm going to say it anyway. The NRL report, 43.1 million surplus this year. So that at least we know they can do something right.
Also, Glennie, we've got Anthony Milford, who supposedly signed with the Knights for this year. So obviously that will put a big feather in the bucket in that halves combination. With his price, I reckon he's going to be coming off the interchange bench at the start, but he'll be pushing for that starting 6 spot, I reckon.
And that was subject to the game itself allowing him to play after his stuff in court.
Well, it's all been taken away, his court case now.
Oh, is that right?
All the charges have been dropped.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yep.
So the news that I heard there, I read an article about that today as well. Apparently, he'll be eligible to play from April. So I don't think he's eligible to play until after April. I'm not sure what that reasoning was. I just read a little tweet out there before.
They probably couldn't afford him any longer.
Yeah, probably. 150 is a bargain though when you think about it. So
a chance we see him in a Bunnies jersey this year?
No.
Newcastle.
Knights it is.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, they're in dire need of some halves there. I'm not sure if Milford's that half they need, but he could come back to days of old, I guess. But we've been waiting for that for a long time. All righty, guys. So this week we're going to talk about the centre wing position, which is actually made me realise that it's only like a week away till TLT, guys. Yeah. I'm pretty bloody excited. So, I just realised this is our last positional analysis, and I'm going to miss them, obviously, but I feel like TLT is coming up. It's Christmas Eve very, very soon, which is good. So, getting excited. Okay, so in the centre wing, guys, I'll start off with the guns here. I've only picked 3 because I believe the centre wing is a very volatile position. The guns you really want are going to be those ones with that really high ceiling. And so I picked 3 here. I'm going to start with one here that I'm not really too fond of, but that's Reuben Garrick. He's priced at $767,000, based on an average of 87.5 from last year. I am not high on this guy for the whole year. I know he's too expensive to own at the start, and I get that, but I'm not going to even own him for most of the year, I believe. I think maybe if he gets down to about 400K, which I believe he will, he might be nice and juicy to pick up mid-season, but I just can't see this guy being as good as he was. Like in 2020, he averaged 41, and that was with a few games with Turbo as well there. In those games, he got 40s. So I'm not really high on this guy at all. If he proves me wrong, great, well done, but I just don't see it happening. The next one I'm actually really high on. Brian Totto. He's priced at $736,000, which is priced at an 84 average from last year. And this guy might not have the ceiling of Garrick, but he does have that solid base. Just basically having an Angus Crichton in your centre wing, which I think is amazing. I do see potentially a digression there because the year before in 2020, he only averaged 58 points, which surprised me when I read that as well. But I do see a bit of a digression there because I don't see the ball being fed to him as well with Targo there. I feel like he was getting fed nice ball there with Burton. I don't see that ball being fed to him as nice. I still think he's going to be probably the best centre wing in the comp, but I don't think it'll be as high as what it was last year. And last but not least, we'll say Alex Johnson, priced $638,000, which is based on a 72 average last year. This is the guy that you get for the runs. And luckily for the Rabbitohs, there's a very early run from round 5 onwards. So this guy, if he has a few little price drops there, he might be a sneaky little pod to actually chuck into your team for that nice, good run. I think it's about 8 games in a row there, which is really good. And the trail back, if the trail's out on the field there, he'll be feeding him a bit of ball as well. So that's what I have for the guns there now. Let's move on to Glenn for the values.
Okay, mate. Yeah. So what I want to say before I did this, because as we all know, the centre wing position is one of the positions that's going to make money. It makes money the fastest, and there's a lot of value this year. So I went through and I looked at what I saw as value, and Tim will later on tell you the ones that are actually the cheapies in that position. And I've picked out 10. And then what I want to do is I want to come back to 3 of them, which I'll say who they are now, which is Ewan Aiken, Katoni Staggs, and Xavier Coates, to talk a little bit more on with you boys about your perspectives on these players. But as I'm going through, if one of you think that you want to discuss that player, let's do that, because I think that every one of these players I've chosen are players that I genuinely would put into my side. So the first one obviously is Ewan Aiken and Katoni Staggs. So Ewan Aiken, 486K. I'm going to come back to him and Katoni Staggs so that we can talk about that. So I'll move past them. The next one is Beau Thurma, who I think at the price range of 379 with an average of 43. This one's subject to selection. So he really needs to be starting for me to be relevant. You don't want a player off the bench playing in your centre wing in an 80-minute position that can make money. But if Beau Thurma does get that starting position, ideally on the right edge, even the left, but preferably the right edge, I think he's a really good buy. The next one is Bailey Simonson. I think at 374K in a Parramatta side, with an average of 42.7 playing for the Raiders in 17 games. So I don't mind that one. I thought his games last year looked quite good. He had ups and downs, though. He was a bit wishy-washy, but I still think he offers value. The next one's very interesting, and I'm going to throw some numbers out that'll shock a few of you. So Xavier Coates at 358, 400, average 40.9. He's at 36% ownership. These are some of his numbers from last year in 80-minute games. 8, 14, 15, 13, 9, 16. Are you still interested? So I think we'll stop there before I go any further, and we'll discuss that one, because I will say that, as we were talking about before we come on there with Tyrone, Bellamy won't cop that. He'll expect a lot more, and the left edge is a scoring position for the Storm. So I see more, but those numbers are ugly.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you. Obviously, I'm a Coates fan from the Bronx and Queensland, but those scores, when I was looking into him, like he has absolute crap sometimes, and he'll still have those games where he won't be as involved. Not as regularly as obviously the ones in the Broncos colours, but he will score you those low ones, guaranteed. He still produces 300 or 420 this year.
Anyone else? Anything on that, Tim or Dan?
He's the definition of a guy that I'll be anti-potting because I do not want a bar of it. At the end of last season, I saw him when he signed for Melbourne. I was like, this guy's going to be good at Melbourne. I was pretty pumped to get him in. He was my first picked, but then breaking down those numbers, I'm not going to have that. You want to, like you said, you want value in your team. He might lose money before he gets money, so I don't want to have that. At least he's that guy you can sit down. He's at that price where you can sit down, wait for him. If he does start looking good and has a run, then jump on. But I'm not starting with him. I'm too scared.
One of the things I look at when I look at a winger is not just the fact that they're in a ceiling club, which he is in a ceiling club, and he's in a side that does score well on the left edge. So they're the positives for him. But I look at work rate. I want my wingers bringing the ball back out of the 20, so like Totto does. Every set, Totto brings up a carry. You know what I mean? So there's 2, 4, 6, 8 points that are going up every time. If Xavier Coates doesn't do that, he could be a real ugly own for owners. And I think he's at an awkward price, given the amount of value that we're going to see with what Tim's going to tell you and what I'm going to continue with. So the next one I actually looked at was Brett Naden at 341, an average of 43. The negative to him, obviously, is he plays for the Bulldogs. And, they're not a ceiling club. They don't. So that, for me, means less opportunities. Now,
Glen, can I just jump back in there, mate, about Coates? Being a big Broncos fan myself as well, the way I look at it, 2 things. One, obviously the Broncos, we had our pants pulled down many, many times last year, and there was a lot of games where we didn't score a lot of points. I would bet my left leg on those are the games that he's got those small scores in. So something more positive to look forward to, I guess. Then when you look at it as well, look at Addo Carr, and he's been Supercoach relevant. The guy's got a massive ceiling, but his problem was he has a very, very low form. He can hit 100 one week and then have 3 weeks of 9s and 10s and 15s and whatever. And then he'll score another 100 or 120, and then he'd score 3 or 4 tries and still not crack the ton. So I think Coates has got more upside than Addo Carr does. I think Coates gets more involved than what Addo Carr did. Addo Carr was basically there on the wing, standing on the sideline to catch the last ball and fall over the line. So that would be how he would score his points, but that was also why he'd get 3 and 4 tries and not score 100. Whereas I think if Coates is in the same position, I think he will get it. I think he'll, more often than not, I think the ball will end up going to the two wingers in the Storm backline for the kick returns, as opposed to going to Pappenhausen, because teams know full well it's like kicking to Teddy, kicking to Turbo. They just worked out, stop kicking it to them, and they'll stop cutting us up straight through the middle on the kick returns. So I think that's a big plus going for the two Storm wingers. Whether or not he can replicate that, who knows? But that's, to me, as a someone who's watched him play a lot of football, I think that's the two things really the real fors and against for him.
I think also he's a big body, so he can break tackles, and I think that outside Munster, there's a lot of pluses there. And the other one is that I think when he was at the Broncos, he looked unhappy. He just didn't look like he wanted to be there. You know, he looked like he checked out. I mean, you know, I've spoken as we get back to the Broncos, I've got a bit to say on them. And I know as a Broncos supporter, you probably won't like what I've got to say, but our job is to be honest, you know, and try and say what we think. So I'll move down to the next one, which is Montoya for the Warriors. Now, they're a side whose wingers do work hard. You know, and that left-hand side, you look past at some of the past wingers on that left edge in Kemba Marlowe, Vutavalu. Is it Vutavalu? I've got the wrong name. You know, some of them wingers that they've had down that edge, they're hard-working wingers, try-scoring wingers. And if you look at his stats back into the trial that he just had, where he had 2 tries, I think it was 4 line breaks. I'm just airing them off my head, but I remember they were quite incredible. And he's at 338K with an average of 38.6. But the other upside to them is the draw for the Warriors. I think they've got a really nice draw. And I'll just quickly throw the last 2 out. So Cobbo, if Cobbo gets that full back spot, he'll be in my actual starting 17. If he's on the wing, he'll probably still sit in my side at 320K with an average of 40.6, but it'll be more about the money as opposed to playing him in the 17. And then the last one, which is one I really like, is Kevin Nkwama. And this is not him so much as is where he is on the field. He's in a Rooster side on the right-hand side, outside Sam Walker, and you see that little pass he lops over the top. You see what Brett Morris done down that wing. The Roosters have got points in them all over the park, and their wingers are notorious for getting those points. So before we go to the others, anyone want to add on those?
Yeah, Nkwama's, you know, he's definitely in my team. If he gets that starting spot, which I think he will. Too goodly priced. And as we know, you know, Trent Robinson will stick pretty. And I don't see them losing many of their, you know, first 8 games. So I think there's a lot of points in him.
Yeah, I agree. So, all right. So I'm going to come back to you.
Go, Timmy.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is if he gets that left spot, they've got Suwali. They're playing him some decent coin for a young fella. Surely, I would have put, myself personally, I would have put Suwali above him, just simply because of the work that the Roosters have put into him. They see him as a future player. They tried really hard to get him and to poach him from South Sydney. So my own personal opinion is I think he's above Nkwama. I think Nkwama's been bought as a fill-in, more so probably as a centre rather than a winger, but that's only my feeling.
Suwali won't be there for the first few rounds, so I think Nkwama can nail it. It'll be his spot to lose.
And I don't see Nkwama playing in the centres. I think he's either on the wing or he's not. I mean, not when you've got Manu and Monrovsky and
Smith. Smith is the next backup.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see him forcing his way into those centre positions.
No, and that's what I mean. I see him more as a fill-in, as an extra. Yeah, I wasn't thinking he was going to start, but that's only my opinion.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I mean, it will be interesting. I mean, and Teamless Tuesday, as it always does, will throw things up, you know, that none of us really know. I mean, none of us can know. All we can go on is the information we're given and give you the best advice we get. And look, I agree. If Suwali takes that spot on the right wing, it's more about the position than the player for me. And I mean, Suwali's got both. I mean, Suwali is a big body. He is a gun. And I think the fact that he's even taller even bodes well for the fact for Sam Walker with them kind of lob-like passes. So anyone add on to that before I get to Ewan?
No, obviously me and Timmy are going to have a lot of differences this year, which is good. But I think I think it does come down to that, Glen. Is it Suwali or is it Nguama? Whichever one gets that starting spot, I think you've got to go for. And whoever does get that one will have it for a fair few weeks until they lose it from their own performance.
Yeah. So, okay, I wanted to move to Ewan Aiken. So, Ewan Aiken last season, so I've actually written extra stuff over here in those players. Aiken at 488k, averaged 55 last year, played 6 games at second row, 5 of which were at 12 and 1 at 11. One of those was a 12 from 13 minutes, so he obviously didn't play. But the ones where he played 80, he got 128, 89, 74, 69, 44. Now, a lot of us were hoping that he would come out on the right side outside Shaun Johnson. That hasn't happened. Is he still good enough to play on your left? And my answer at the moment is, yeah, I think so. I mean, the fact that he can be played at centre wing, and some of us who are old school from Supercoach love the second row or the fullback in the centre wing position. The argument is there's so much value in that position. Is there room?
Well, yeah, a lot of the arguments about the right side, left side. He was playing on the left side last week, and he got those scores that you just named off then. And I had him last year for that run, and I really liked it. It depends on who the half is going to be on that side. Obviously, there's a bit of speculation who's going to be that half, but it's going to be one of the regulars from last year that was feeding the ball last year. So he's going to be priced a little bit lower than what he's worth in that position for 80 minutes. I think he's a good spot. He'll have that reasonably high ceiling for a second rower in your centre wing. Not as high as a normal centre wing with the try scoring ability, but I still like him. Just because he's not an outside SJ doesn't mean anything.
No, he's outside Ash Taylor instead.
That's if it is Ash Taylor. I mean, CHT will start, in my opinion, fullback. Then Walsh will come in and CHT will move to the bench. Nikorima, will start on the left and Shaun Johnson on the right. And I actually went through Nikorima's numbers today, and they were actually quite nice. He's had some really nice scores, a few over 100. And with that draw, it wouldn't be a bad shout. The only problem is, as we all know, there's not certainty on that. If we knew 100% that was locked in, he'd be a consideration at the very least with that draw. So anyway, for those that are looking to the old strategy we usually play is cheapies everywhere, one gun. Usually I go one gun, one mid, which let's say it was an Aiken as Xavier Coates, if that's the sort of price range, and then you're looking for your money there because that is obviously the best spot for making money. So the next one I'm going to go.
What do you reckon, Timmy? But
what was that, mate?
Yeah, look, I like Aiken myself. I'm actually doing something a little bit different because I'm trying to maximise the cheaper spots down in centre wing. I've actually got Aiken up in my second row at the moment, and as with Thurma, who I believe we're going to talk about more as well.
Yeah, that's right. So
there you go. I don't have him in my team.
And why is that, Rod? What are you thinking?
Probably what Dan said before. I think I'm anti-potting him, hoping he does have that bad start. And my money's elsewhere, so I just don't have him as one of the people that I really want or need at the moment. So probably changes on Team List Tuesday, but for now he's not there.
I've just noticed another pick that I had in my value picks, and I'm surprised I never mentioned him. Also, was the Hammer for Doe at 418k, a fullback available in the centre wing position. He averaged 47.8 last season. So for those that are interested, but the one I wanted to come back to because I know he's highly owned as well is Katoni Staggs. Now I'm going to give you my reasons why I don't like it, and I'll tell you what it is. It's I almost swore then, the coach. He is a spud, and I watch the close. I watch every game really closely, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to shoot how I feel. And I generally know when I'm watching the attack of a side what they're doing. You look at the Roosters and you watch them play out the back. They play the short ball. I know what they're setting up to do every moment on the field, and you can see that from the good clubs. When I look at the Broncos, and I actually did it week after week after week, and I sat there and I thought, I cannot figure out what this side is trying to do. And then I watched that trial the other day, and I mean, look, Staggs is a gun, and in any other side, Staggs would be my must pick and locked in because Staggs himself is a gun player, and he's outside A-Ray, so they're the upsides. But the negatives is I think I saw the same old Broncos in that trial the other day.
Hey, Glenn, when was the last time you played finals?
Tigers. Or the Broncos, mate. When the Broncos last played.
It's been sooner than 10 years, mate.
Yeah, we won a grand final in 2005.
Luke Brooks has never played a finals game.
Yeah,
And I'm pretty sure he's 32 and he's still in the emerging squad for New South Wales.
Who's that?
Luke Brooks.
Oh, Brooks actually played well, I thought, the other day. I don't want to G people up, but I actually thought in goal kicking and he actually looked really good. But yeah, Brooks, I mean, yeah, that's
Don't do it.
Don't
do it.
Yeah, he'd be out of my. I cannot stand Brooks anymore. Now I'm hoping some sort of mercy that Hastings and Dewey, when Dewey's back, becomes our combination. But I mean, look, I'm sad by the Tigers every year. It's just getting worse and worse. So I'm interested on your guys' feedback on Stags.
I'll go last. Someone else go before me before I talk him up.
Yeah, look, I'm a huge fan. I really like him. Since his first couple of games that he played for us, he's awesome. There can be nothing on. He touches the ball and all of a sudden there's something doing. So he's definitely an attacking weapon for the Broncos. Tackle bust, line breaks, line break assists. He's got a little kick every now and then as well. Depending on who's kicking, he's up there as well. So he would be the top 2 or 3 kickers at the club. So he's certainly got that string to his bow as well. I've got him in my team at the moment. He was one of the first players I picked. I've got 2 guns in my centre wing at the moment. I know we were talking off air before we started. I'm trying to toss up whether that's the way that I'm going or whether I save a few bucks and move things elsewhere, because there's some other guns that I would like that I'm just basically been waiting till Teamless Tuesday to see if they're actually named or not. So I've sort of got to the point where I'm not touching too much more until Teamless Tuesday. But at the moment, Stags is in my side, locked and loaded.
Dano?
Yeah, obviously I love Stags. I think he's a great player and he's one of those guys that you hate to watch when he's not in your team. But I personally am going to anti-pod him based on his history. He has a lot of short injury-affected games, and that's a very scary risk to run for me personally. I'm actually a bit nervous about not having Stags. I'm actually going a different pod around the same price in Sloan. But yeah, I think if anyone got him, I'm not going to argue with you. I think he's a great player, and he's definitely got that massive score in him. So yeah, if you jump on, I couldn't recommend it. I couldn't recommend it more. I'm just avoiding.
Yeah, and look, I probably talked him up from the end of last year where he ended off, and you knew he was going to come with a good price. Once Supercoach released that price, he's the guy that I looked straight at and said, "Yep, he's in my team." The only problem around it is that we've got Cobbo and we've got Pereira, who are all around the same price. Obviously, Stags a little bit more, but I had all 3. But obviously, I'm going to cut it down to 2, and it'll be 2 out of those 3 players. I just don't know which ones yet. So, but I love the guy. Sucks a good toe.
That was my reason I didn't have him, was because I love Stags, and if money's not an object and I'm picking players, Stags probably makes it somewhere. You know what I mean, in my side. But when you got Cobbo and Pereira at 100k cheaper, or 180k cheaper, I think 130k cheaper, was it?
Yeah.
Cobbo to Stags, and I just thought if Stags gets that fullback position, and based on the other backs that we're going to be looking at when Timmy shouts them out. There's a lot of value in that position. So there's only one, in my opinion, gun we're going to pick in that position. So for some, it will be Stags. For most of my sides I've made in the season, it has been Stags. But after watching that Broncos trial, I just thought that's the same old Broncos I'm used to seeing in the last few years, and it didn't excite me at all. The ball didn't go his way. It was just not happening.
But that changes with A-Ray back in.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. I was going to say it's the same thing.
So that ball will be going right.
Yeah,
70% of the day. A-Ray will say I want it, and he'll get it. So
yeah,
that's a big upside.
Anyway, that's what I was going to say. So that is the upside to him, is that outside of A-Ray will be Jordan Ricky, Stags, and Cobbo, or Cobbo at fullback, depending on which way they go. And I really do like that edge. But
and then Pereira's outside him.
Oh, Pereira. Oh, that's
Pereira.
Cobbo goes for fullback. That's right. And I mean, I like Pereira too. So I mean, A-Ray's a class act, and I like A-Ray. So anyway, that's all I've got for there at the moment.
Thanks, Glenn. Yeah, I think the Broncos, it's every year they don't look that good when it comes to NRL wise, but they're always going to have value in there for Supercoach all the bloody time.
Yeah.
Every year I'm starting with 3 or 4 Broncos in my team. So it's just because they got great players, but I think that just kind of goes hand in hand with what you were saying with the coach. So I'll shush now. All right. Thanks, Zach, Glenn. Let's talk about the cheapies now. Tim, how'd you go with the cheapies, mate?
Yeah, boys, geez, how long we got? We could nearly do a show just on these. It's and that's the big dilemma this year. There's a lot of players. So what we've looked at for cheapies is strictly under 300K. So the boys made sure we put a price limit on it. So otherwise we could literally just sit here for days talking about our cheap centre wing. So under 300K, one of the men we just talked about, great segue, Jordan Pereira, 266,500. Last year scored 152 points. Obviously, he's gone from the Dragons and now to the Broncos. So 152 points, gave him a 38 average all season, 72 minutes per game. So he still wasn't playing full minutes. 0.53 ppm, and that was on a 4-game sample. So he only played the 4 games last season for his 152 points, which is obviously why he's discounted at 266,500. Well, we've already talked about him, so I guess there's probably not much more to say, but he's just about a lock and load, I think, for value-wise. And, yeah, just got to be there. If he's named on the wing on the right-hand side, he's got to be there. Talatau Amone is the next one I've got. He's at 284, 5'8", centre wing dual, which makes things a little bit interesting. His first 6 games, he's got the Warriors, Panthers, Sharks, Para, Souths and Knights. So probably 3 pretty tough teams, 3 teams that he'd certainly like to play. In my team currently, I have him in centre wing, not in 5'8", which is something that a lot of other people aren't doing. They've got him up as a cheap spot in 5'8" and running 2 cheapies there. So I've got him down, taking up one of my centre wing spots. And that's just the way that I'm doing things at the moment. Next to the 2 wingers from Para, Sean Russell and Will Penasini. Russell is at 285,400, Penasini at 255,700. Russell last year only played 2 games, 93 points for a 47 average. 54 minutes per game, though, boys. So he wasn't playing the full game and still averaged 47. So he's at 0.87 ppm across his 2 games. Penasini last season scored 125 points. Very small sample size as far as games go as well. They've got the Titans, Sharks, Storm, Dragons, Titans again, and the Tigers. So, yeah, they just about seem to be locked in for those 2 wing spots. Obviously, Fergo's gone. And their other winger is
Simonson.
Yeah, Simonson. So I would think at this stage those 2 boys are fairly locked in. Does anyone disagree with that?
No, until Sivo is allowed to play.
Yeah.
I think they've got that spot unless they make this late run at a player like they're supposed to be doing. Sarko and obviously Corey Oates were named. Unless they go down that path, then I think that they'll be locked in.
So at this stage, boys, with those 2 cheapies in mind, have you guys got your eye on anyone in particular? At the moment, I've got Penasini penciled in, but like I said, I haven't touched my team really for the last couple of weeks. So Sean Russell's really only come on the scene over the last 2 trials. So I had Penasini locked in because he was just about guaranteed it, but now there's talk of Sean Russell as well. He's Sean Russell's 285 and Penasini's 255. So I would at this stage still go with Penasini myself, but I'm happy to be talked out of it. I haven't watched the Eels close enough to know which one's more likely.
Well, I have Sean Russell, and I'll tell you now, anybody who watches the Eels knows that Gutho comes in on the sweep play on the left-hand side, and that left-hand wing is prime real estate. So that makes him an automatic choice, in my opinion, based on points per dollar at that price range. Penasini has the work rate that you like on that right edge, and I think that the Eels have the draw that screams own both. So both of them are in my side, yes.
So in mine, I've got Russell, I've got Penasini, I've got Pereira, I've got Amone, all in my centre wing. Is there anyone else that you've got, Timmy, or?
Yeah, look, I've also got obviously Targo down there. He's at 287, the centre wing, second row forward dual with the Panthers. He's guaranteed a starting spot. 197 points last season for a 33 average. That were only 37 minutes per game, though. So that gave him a 0.88, so just shy of the 1 point per minute. That was on a 6-game sample. Panthers have got Manly, St George, Knights, Souths, Dogs, Broncos, and everyone seems to think he will be the spot just inside of mental block where they kept scoring all their points last year, down that left-hand side.
Yeah, playing Totto.
Yeah, Totto, of course. So whether or not he does the same job that Burton did, obviously Burton's a pretty handy ball player in the halves, and that's who he's replacing, obviously. So at 287, 900 in a Panthers attack left-hand side where they like to go quite often and certainly did early last season, he's got to be a starter. He's about as close to a must-have as I think you get.
You just named my whole centre wing, Timmy, so thanks a lot, mate.
I don't think you're the only one, mate. I think as I've been flicking through these and I was going through my team and sort of ticking them off as I was going. Some of the other ones are, I guess, special mentions. Joseph Suwali, like we said before, we don't know what's going to happen at the Roosters, who's picking up which spot. So he's there at 259, 500. Cody Ramsey, he's fullback centre wing dual. So that's if he gets named, some people have said that they're looking at putting Ramsey down at fullback. Robert Jennings, 229, 100. And Gildart at the Tigers. Glennie, you're probably the best one for information with that. From all reports, wasn't too flash in the trials, but that's just from what I've heard. I didn't pay too close attention to him.
Well, he didn't do a lot of runs, but the runs he did were quality. I mean, he made some good ground. He put in what I thought was a line break assist, but wasn't paid. So he did show glimpses, but the issue for him, again, is the side he's in. The Tigers is another side that I can see what they're trying to do, but they can't do it. So they come from another perspective for me. The Tigers just, I don't know. I mean, it's an attitude thing, I think, in that club for me. I just think that it starts in the dressing room with the Tigers, and I don't think that's where the happiness is coming from. I don't know what to say about that. But so for me, Goulart's an avoid. But the other one that you did say was Crichton, I really like. I think any one of those back line from the Eels are a grab. And as we stated at the beginning of all this, that's where the value is this season. And revenue is key at the start of Supercoach. So just keep that in mind. You know, where can you make money? Centre wing's the fastest making position to make money in Supercoach. So there you go.
So I got Koala as well from Manly at the moment. If he jags that spot, you know, he's supposed to be the fastest man in league. Now the next one. And I actually liked him on the weekend. From that first half, you know, he really got involved. So he's a little special one if he gets named on TLT.
Yeah, you got Parker and Harper there that'll probably start in the centres, but if Koala gets that position, he has to be next in line. What I saw too, I thought I really liked. He showed glimpses, and I think him being on that side with Saab, I mean, that speed of them two together, it'd be very hard to stop in a gap. You know, if you get those two out and outside Turbo, I mean, you just imagine that. Turbo going down the middle and putting either one of those through, you're not catching them.
No.
Danny, what do you reckon?
I love how you said fastest man in the league. Did you see that break? And Saab was just jogging behind him.
Yeah.
Different when you got a ball butt.
Yeah, I get that, but he was just jogging. It was so easy for him.
Yeah.
He was like jogging. I think he was making sure he knew it too. He's there going, I'm catching you, right? I'm catching you right behind him. So I thought it was good to watch. I'm not sure what happened there. I think I need to find out some news on Harper. I think that Harper was out of that game. I heard there may have been a niggle or resting. I'm not sure. So I might need to find out some news on that. I don't see Harper missing that spot. I think Koala's probably a better player in that spot. Give him a go. I think Harper's pretty boring.
Yeah.
But yeah, in saying that, yeah, I'm talking from a super coach perspective here as well. So I just want some cheapies to come. So I need to be selfish. So Timmy, out of my 7 centre wings, you named 6 of them. So I'm hoping with the pods, is that all you have, mate?
Yeah, mate. That's it.
Yeah. So I'm hoping Brod, I'm sure he's about to name my 7th centre wing. So Brod, how'd you go with the pods?
If he doesn't, I will.
Well, so going through the pods, so I'm really surprised. So I'm going to name a couple of players first that I won't talk about, but I'll just name them. But no one that I've talked about in this list is owned by more than 3% of super coaches. So I've got Tupu, only owned it by 2.7%. If you talk to Glenny, he can score a lot of points. So to only be owned by 2.7 is crazy numbers. I've got Croker. Obviously, used to be a Supercoach gun, but only owned by 2.6% and 320K. So nicely priced if he does get that run. Obviously, we know he's kicking, especially that Fogarty's down now. So this other one hurts me. Nofo. Absolute gun 2 years ago. You had to own him. Best player by far. He's now owned by 2.5% and 467K. I've got Jimmy the Jet. If he does jag that spot in the centres, owned by 1.2% and only 270K. So is there anything on those ones, boys?
Tupou for sure. I mean, Daniel Tupou has incredible base, and again, he's on the back line outside Keary, Angus, and Monrovsky. I mean, what's not to like?
Yeah, I really like Tupou. But one thing I did hear before as well that his Nofo's base went from like 32 to 26 from 2020 to 2021. And I think that almost coincides with the rise of Mamalo arriving at your club. And Mamalo's base is about the same. I feel like their hit-ups got shared more. So I feel like there's been a bit of... they've obviously got another big size winger on the other side. Now they can take those hit-ups. That's why a lot of his base disappeared. So with Mamalo there, if that is the reason, if Mamalo goes down for whatever reason, jump on to Nofo. I reckon there might be a sneaky little way to get in there. I'm glad you didn't name my pod, mate. Thank you.
I've still got 4 more to go, mate, that I'll talk about.
Okay. I'll edit it out at the end.
And just on Norfolk, so the Tigers played last season a lot of their back play, which would be Moses out to Mbai and then Mbai out to Ken Mamalo. And so Mamalo coming to the club, Norfoluma from left to right, that really hurt him a lot. Norfoluma is someone that does do a lot of work from the back, and he does get those tackle busts and offloads, and he is everything you want in a Supercoach player. But again, the negative to him is the side he plays in. And look, I'm a Tigers supporter, 55 years, and I don't even know what they're doing. And I mean, they're another club that, I mean, at least when I look at the Broncos, like as negative as I am about them, they've got the class there. On paper, they have a classy side. The problem for me there is the coach. With the Tigers, I don't even know what to say with them half the time. I mean, I like the fact we're bringing in Apai and IPAP. I think they're good, but then we're losing Luciano Leilua. So, gain one, gain two, lose one. That's.
I like how you still think that Moses plays for you, mate.
Did I say Moses? I'm old and I'm tired. Forgive me.
Old and senile.
No, Mbai and Brooks. Sorry. So Brooks getting the ball last season and then passing out left to Mbai. And I'm glad Mbai's gone. He was, mate, if I was at a game, I would have thrown rocks at him. He just done my head in.
All right. So we'll get on with the other 4 then before Glennie gets angry. So I want to have a chat about these 4 and get your thoughts, boys. Yep. So I'm going to start with the highest owned. So Paul Monrovsky, 2.1%, 486K, and should pick up the kicking duties at the Roosters. What do we think about him?
Prime real estate, mate. You saw the post that I wrote, left edge, right wing. I think he's a great shot. And he doesn't pass, so that makes him very superficial.
So is that a reason not to own Tupou then?
Well, I think Keary negates that and the work that Tupou does out of the back. But I think that Momorowski and the fact that he'll probably goal kick, so there's another tick for Momorowski. I like the Momorowski pick. I just think that his price point is the issue. It's around, it goes back to the money and the value in that position at the moment, means that we're really forced to pick one gun, and Momorowski wouldn't be a bad one to choose for me.
I've always had my issues with him, and I know nothing about the player or anything like that. But the fact that he's been shopped around by clubs to so many different clubs has to kind of set off some alarm bells. Now, they could be for a million different reasons. I've got absolutely no idea. On top of that, obviously, Trent Robinson is well known to not put up with any rubbish, a bit like bellyache. He's been playing the game for long enough that he just doesn't put up with it. So maybe if he doesn't fit in with the Roosters, obviously they don't necessarily need him for his kicking. They've got Sam Walker there, who's a decent kicker as well. So when they've got umpteen million backs in the background waiting for someone to trip up and fall, that's my only question on him. He can play well. He can produce everything that the good centres in the game can. I guess the other way to look at it too is you had the Morris twins there, and Josh Morris was a really good centre, but then relate that back to Supercoach, and he wasn't the greatest Supercoach scorer. He'd score 100, but then it might go 6, 7, 8 weeks before he does anything anywhere near it. A lot of games of 30s and 40s, and that's great if that's what you're looking for. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not sold on the Monrovsky one myself.
Where did he start, Timo?
What's that, sorry?
Which team did he start for?
Yeah, he's just started at the Roosters.
Yeah.
So that's again,
He's
this is
taking
all
him back.
part of it.
He's,
This is all part of it. So
he's taking him back, so you must see something in him now.
Yeah, and I believe he's been brought there for his kicking. I think, although what was interesting in the trials that Keegan kicked, I was quite, I don't know what the thinking was behind that, but I mean, maybe they want to give their second string kicker, but you would think that would be Walker because I don't see a spot for Keegan, do you?
No.
Adam Kieran, no.
Yeah, Kieran, sorry.
But Kieran, as we know, is one of the better kickers in that team. Like, he
Yeah.
actually is a very good, accurate kicker. That's probably why they were doing it, but it didn't make sense to me that he was doing it in a trial match. It didn't make any sense. So, but yeah.
Especially when he's not going to be in the 17, as far as I could see, unless he's going to play a utility role or something like that as a utility back or something along those lines. But yeah, I couldn't see him in there.
And you are right on one thing. So of the 4 places in the back line for the Roosters, the least scoring is the left centre. So the right wing, then the left wing, and then the right centre, and then left centre. So you're right. And when you've got Angus who likes to run, Monrovsky who likes to run, that could in fact impact Tupou. But I think Keary negates that somewhat, and the work that Tupou does from the back. So Roosters, anyone in the Rooster side this year, I think are going to win the premiership myself.
All right. So my next one's Dane Gagai. 599k, so up there in the price. That was obviously because he went over 84 times and went over 120 twice. So obviously coming from a high ceiling Rabbits into probably, the Knights that a lot of tipping for the spoon. I think this one should be a pretty quick one, but it was interesting to see there was only in 1.2.
And outside, arguably the best 5'8" in the game in Cody Walker. So, I mean, I think he's priced at where I think a lot of centre wings this season are over, and I think Gagai's one of them. But having said that, Gagai is a great footballer, and he's a great asset for the Newcastle Knights. I think that he's one you might want to pick a little later when he drops in price. He could be good value going through the buy period. But to start, given the amount of quality that's around and value, I think he's a miss for me.
Oh, I actually, I totally agree with all that as well. But I also like the fact that he's gone back to Newcastle as well. It's like he's gone back home, so he might actually have a bit of pride. And I'm not saying he didn't before, but he might go there and put a bit of extra effort in as well. So, but yeah, like you said, I don't see it being relevant to start of the year, but definitely keep an eye out for him.
Oh, he was a Broncos before, mate. That's his own.
Yeah. His 3 best games every season are when he puts on the maroon jersey. If only his club form would look like that every week, he'd be a set and forget. But
he did all right last year. He did all right last year.
Yeah, his club form last year was insane. You look at his numbers at the back end especially, they were particularly good. I was actually quite surprised when I went through them. I was looking at Gagai and I thought, wow, they were, but outside Katie Walker, it's to be expected. And Gagai's got one thing that I like. He's got a high work rate. He defends, he runs, he's in the thick of it the whole way through. I'm a huge fan of Gagai, and I think he's a great asset to the Queensland team too. He's an incredible footballer.
He's one of those guys that comes out of Origin a better player every year. His first half of the season might not be the flashiest. He gets picked for Origin because everyone knows how well he can play in that arena. He's kind of like Cherry Evans, much the same, generally slow start at the start of the season, goes into Origin camp, gets around all the boys, second half of the season kicks on.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Jesse Raymond, 1.1%, 552.9K, high score of 124 last year, and has the pedigree, to produce those high numbers.
The year before last, he was incredible, and I expected that to go into last year, and it didn't quite translate. But Jesse came into class act, and the Sharks this season are a class side. I really like the way they're built this year, with Fanuc and Hines and Josh Adokar. So, I mean, I don't think that's about how much is he, mate?
So he's 552.
Yeah, I don't mind him.
If someone showed me their team and they had all the regular cheapies and he was their gun, I wouldn't say no. I really like Ramey. He's got solid base, bust tackles for fun, and he puts so much effort into every hit up. If you can show that same commitment as you did, even last year, he still showed that commitment. Just didn't show on the Supercoach score. He just didn't get as many tries. But yeah, if someone showed me their team and had him in it, I wouldn't tell them to take him out.
I had him for most of last season, and the sole reason being that he was there just as my base centre wing. I knew that you could bank on 50 points a week. You didn't have to worry that he'd knock out a 15 or a 10 or something ridiculous. You could pretty much bank on 50 points a week. It was frustrating as hell because you'd watch a Sharks game, he'd score and it'd get called back, or there was things like that happened, just seemed to happen nearly every game. He was just that one play or one touch or something off 75, 80, 90 points. But, yeah, you can basically bank on him for 50 points a game. If that's what you need as like one staple in your centre wing, then, yeah, I think he's worth a shout.
It'd be a solid draft pick too, I think. Like if you're playing draft out there and you wouldn't go too bad having a Jesse Ramian. But, I mean, when we're looking in that position, we're looking first at money, then we're looking at ceiling, and then we're looking also at base. And until we see what product that we get this year, I mean, last year I changed the whole formula of how I played. I mean, it was always all about the base. But last yearling, it becomes ceiling. So we ended up with players like AJ, Garrick, Totto. We were building that kind of a side. So until we see, I don't think Jesse Ramian's a bad shout at all, especially early.
Well, his only game that scored under 40 was 17, and that was against Panthers.
Yeah.
And he only played 27 minutes. So, nice little one there. And saving my best for last. Especially Dan and Glen will know who I'm talking about. It's Brian Kelly.
Oh, something I thought he was going to. Did you, Dan?
Love Brian Kelly.
He didn't out my pod. Love it. It's all good.
So Brian Kelly is owned by 0.5%. He's 513K and scored over 94 times last year.
Yeah.
I've owned him the last 2 years. For some reason, I haven't looked at him this year. But after this, I'm putting him in at the 0.5%. Just such a good pod. Talk me out of it, Glenn. Or Timmy.
Mate,
Timmy will.
Just look at the consistency of last year with Titans. I tried to help you last year. Sometimes some coaches can't be helped, brother. No, I think, seriously, I think he's a good pick too. Again, I just go back to when we start our season, we're looking at value and one gun. And does Kelly rise to that, or does the Titans rise to that? And that's the issue for me. The Titans have the points in them. They spend a lot of that time defending, and that's the only problem. Kelly's definitely a class act. I just don't think he's a pick early, brother, but I do think he's one to pick up along the way.
Yeah, I agree. I think Kelly he's certainly worth a spot, but I maybe would watch the first couple of games, see how many points the Titans have really got in them. I haven't looked at the Titans draw closely myself because I haven't got any Titans in my team. Even Fafita, he's not in my squad at the moment. So I haven't had a really close look at the Titans draw. I'm not totally convinced that they've got as many points in them as they did last season. Mind you, I think with young Campbell at fullback, that's going to change things a little bit. If he can sort of make those sweeping plays and things like that, and they get the kick returns with Kelly, then I think he's certainly one to keep an eye on. It's not one that I would start with, but it's certainly someone that I could see owning in my team at some stage. If he gets down closer to 400, then I think I'd be all over it.
So he plays Para twice, Warriors, Canberra, Tigers, and Manly in his first 6 games.
What was his average last season, bro?
His average. Sorry, I'm not as organised as you guys.
Sorry, I haven't.
58.5. So had a highest score of 99 and a lowest of 20.
Okay.
I can talk you out of him right now if you want. So I love Brian Kelly, you know that. But I feel as though if you're going to go one gun in that centre wing position, he has to have a ceiling. And if he can't crack 100, which he had a pretty good year last year and didn't crack 100, he's consistent with base, but I just don't see having that gun centre wing that's not without a ceiling.
I feel like 299s and 291s is pretty good.
Yeah. And the other thing is,
Did you watch last year, mate?
No, I had the year off.
when they go left too, they play to Fafita a fair bit, you know, so that robs him a little bit of ball too. Fafita's not known for offloading too often. He kind of tucks and goes, doesn't he? But look, I think Kelly's someone that you could look at further down the track. I just don't know, brother, if I'd be starting him. Given I agree with Dan. I think if you're going to pick the one gun in that position, you really want the ceiling one, the one that you know can crack you that big score whilst you're making money in that position.
Yeah, I'm going to go him now.
Pretty
Nice try, guys.
We just convinced everyone not to go him, so you're like, yes, even more of a pod now, yeah.
Keep him going down. If he loses a 0.1%, I'm on him. If he stays at 0.5, I won't. Okay.
You heard it, listeners. You heard it, listeners. Everyone get off him so he goes down nice and low, so Brodge can screw his season over.
I'll do it. All right, that's mine. But you know, and looking at it, there is so many from that 3 to 10%, which are in the pod range. Like Timmy O, I could speak 6 hours on the pods and why. But pick your one and hope he goes well, because if you get him, I think you're going to be off to a good start.
Explain to the viewers too, for those that are new, Brody, why pods can be quite handy in this side.
So obviously, you know, if we're looking at a pod, we're normally looking at under 10%. And you know, if we've got 150,000 players, Supercoach this year, you know, 10% is only 15,000 people that have him. You know, if you're looking at Brian Kelly, Timmy O, you're probably better at maths than me, mate. 0.5%. What's that? 2,500 people.
1,000.
Yeah.
So
1.5.
you know that they're the only ones that have got him. You know, if he turns up 3 times, you're ahead straight away just with that one player. So, and then obviously, you know, the anti-pod is what Dan loves talking about. They're the high-owned players that you jump off.
Yeah.
So,
I think we've already proven that most of our centre wings going to look fairly similar in that basically everyone's going to have 4 or 5 players that are pretty much exactly the same. Now, whether they're just sitting on your bench making cash or whether you're actually playing them in your 17 is a different story. But that's what it's going to come down to. We're all going to have 4, 5, 6 of the same guys. You've got to try and work out who's going to be the best of the rest, and that's where you're going to pick up those places. Otherwise, we're all going to have exactly the same team to start with, and that sort of defeats the purpose. But that makes a difference between a good super coach and somebody who's just going with the pack, someone who's prepared to do the research and try and work out. But then, like we always say, go with your gut. You might have a gut feeling on one particular striker who might be ready to jump out of the box and go with a good draw, or someone who's undervalued, like Glen's been talking about.
Can I say one thing about pods too, but Supercoach sometimes does not reward them for their play. I can remember talking to Glen about when I owned, what was the Roosters? Manu. Manu did the exact same play as Lomax did one week, but Teddy got all the points where Lomax got the points. So the ones that are higher owned, they do tend to get a favourable unicorn points as well. So, you know, when you're looking at those pods in the teams, the ones that don't have that big superstar player will more than likely get the points. So if you're looking at a Brian Kelly and a Manu, Brian Kelly will normally get those points for that sweeping play, where Teddy will probably take him off Manu.
I just add something in. 2 of the best seasons I've actually had where I've started really well is where I've nailed that ceiling centre wing. So whereas in most we all seem to have a very similar makeup of the cows, and that's generally around centre wing. But the seasons where I've progressed, and you only got to get 40 or 50 more above than everyone else. If you can do that, each week, you're really going to progress quickly. So if you can land that centre wing in that position that's lowly owned, that has a ceiling like a Monrovsky or a Totto or whoever it is that you nail, if you can nail that right one just for the first 4 to 6 weeks whilst the rest are fattening up, that can really progress you in Supercoach. It can come down to one player, seriously, if you get it right.
Yeah, totally agree. And I even though I said if Brod named my pod, I wouldn't. I'd edit it out. I actually will name my pod now, guys, because I believe it's a very, very handy one to have, and that is Campbell Graham from the Rabbitohs. He is a bloody solid player, has been for a few years now. Everyone normally stays away from him because he hangs on that right edge. And in the Charity Shield, I was keeping an eye which edge he was on. He was on the right edge. However, Cody Walker swung from right to left all game. And having that, when Cody Walker's doing that, Campbell Graham gets points. So he's actually at 494, if I remember correctly. And he's owned by 1.7%. So keep an eye on him too, guys.
Can I just ask there, does Cody Walker do the same thing when Littrell's back?
No.
Well, no, he does, but not as much. And I will just say that when Cody does drift right or left, he tends to play to the wings. But what makes Campbell Graham so good also is that he has a very high work rate. And he is a genuine try scorer as well. So I agree. Campbell Graham's a great buy. Yeah, ceiling club, and and he's got a high work rate, and he can break tackles, and he actually has does a fair few tackles as well. Like he comes in and defends in the middle quite well. So I like Campbell Graham a lot.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'll start with him, but what I will do is probably try and get him in around round 5 when he has that run.
I just mentioned one we haven't mentioned, and that's Jackson Paulo. So I'm not sure where he's starting, whether it's going to be left centre or right wing. But if he gets either of those positions, again, left centre outside of Cody Walker, right wing, which is also a high scoring position. I think he was under 300k too, or it might have been somewhere between 300 and 400, 350.
375.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, it's a little up there, but it's still not a bad shout, especially if he gets the left edge outside Cody Walker.
He did play really good in the Charity Shield.
Yeah.
Looked really good. I think he got a try, and I think he got held up for another try. So I think it was really good to watch.
As we said, I think we can make a case for 80% of the centre wings.
Yeah. We might be here all night, boys.
Yeah, there's a lot out there. It's just choosing that right one, and if you do get it, you'll see it at the start.
Yeah.
So good luck to you all.
Yeah.
All right, guys. I think that finishes up our position analysis. Before we go, Brod, did you want to shout out the cash comps, mate?
Yeah, just overalls really left, and weekly comp, $5 knockout, which we'll have open for a while, up to about 70 runners. So it's a good little comp to get in. Be our highest one, but also just want to say good luck to everybody. Team List Tuesday is a few sleeps away, and I hope it crushes all your teams and you have to restart.
And for those that don't know, next week we'll have another pod just this week on Sunday where we're going to take a few viewers' teams and we're going to strip them apart. So we've got 2 at the moment. So we can take one more if someone wants to let us know, and we'll look at their team and on the panel. And also Timmy and I will be throwing up a pod once a week called Yin and Yang. So I know Timmy wants to quickly tell you about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yin and Yang, our first pod dropped late last week. So, yeah, it's something that Glen and I have been doing on the side. So sort of taking a bit of NRL 360, Supercoach 360 knowledge. And obviously Glen's from Tragics. And we've got a good group of guys that we sort of talk to constantly as well. So we've got a few thoughts going into it. But pretty much we look at 3 players each week that are too scary not to have in your team, and give them a bit of a fear factor rating. So looking at their long-term runs, so looking at 3, 4, 5 games ahead rather than sort of just looking at who are they playing next week and are they going to score well. So, yeah, I look at the fear factor side of things, and Glen's going to look at the flunk factor. So looking at 3 players who he thinks might be highly owned or for particular reasons doesn't think that they'll play so well over the next few weeks.
Sounds a bit better than the pod that me and Dan are coming up with called Dumb and Dumber. Really don't have anything on there, so it's a pretty quick pod.
Yeah, just us talking crap. So, yeah.
Sounds like a great concept, boys, on a Sunday afternoon over a few beers.
Yeah.
I'll be looking forward to hearing your predictions for the first week. So,
Yeah, and also next week when we do our TLT, guys, we're going to be doing our Super 8 as well. So anyone who wants to, you guys are going to tell me your Super 8s as well after every game. So we're going to start that as well. Almost forgot about that. Before we go, I'll also just shout out once again to jump into the Supercoach 360 overall group. The group code is 790873. Also jump into the Tragics overall group, 922904. And also the Podmasters public group, which is 104397. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll catch up with you next week.
so yeah.
Awesome. Thanks very much for having me, boys. Stay safe and be good.
Peace out.
Hashtag Tiger suck.
They suck.